Okay, guys, we're live. Welcome to the second webinar. About it's a two-part, like 2 and 3 will be two parts of a whole. So it's called like staying connected to Judaism on campus, Torah, Avoda, and Gemilat Chasadim. So the idea of this webinar is kind of to talk about, actually before we introduce the webinar, I don't think all three of you were here together last time. So maybe does everyone just want to go around really quickly, say their name and what school they're in?
Sure, I'll go first. My name is Seth. I'm from Toronto. I'm currently at the University of Western Ontario studying sciences. And last year I was in a gap year in Israel in Beit Shemesh. So yeah.
Oh, thanks.
I'm John. I'm from New York. I'm currently studying in Dartmouth College. Looking to major in Go. Last year also in Israel in Moser.
Cool. And Daniel?
I'm Daniel. I go to ASU, Arizona State University, and I'm majoring in industrial engineering.
Cool. Welcome, everyone. So as I was saying, so the idea of these next two webinars are kind of focused on perspective from Pirkei Avot. It's a Mishnah that we're going to learn together in a few minutes. That the whole world stands on, learning Torah, Avoda, and Gemilat Chasadim. So for this webinar, we're going to focus on Torah and kind of why having an active Torah lifestyle and making Torah at least a somewhat regular part of your life is kind of quintessential to building your life in this new community on your new campus. So yeah, let's get started. So I sent out the source sheet in the email, but in case any of you didn't get it, it's right there. I just messaged it to the video. So if you could all click on it, and maybe let's learn some of it together. Let me know when you guys got it up. Good? Okay. So who wants to read the first source? English, Hebrew, other languages, I guess, in theory.
Yeah, I can do that.
Awesome. Go for it.
Let's see my screen. One second. First source. Okay. Shimon Tzadik Haya Mishrei Knesset Gedola. Hu Haya Omer Al Shlosha Devarim Haolam Omed Al Torah Al Avodah Al Gemilut Chasadim. So.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want to translate?
Sure. Shimon the righteous was of the remaining members of the Great Assembly. He would say, on three things the world stands: on Torah, on Avoda, and on acts of kindness.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so I guess as a starting question, when it says that on these three things the world stands, what does that mean exactly? How do you guys understand that?
Well, I guess there's two different perspectives. One is literally the world stands on it, without these things wouldn't exist. And then there's also the opinion that I kind of take more of a take towards, but it's just that these are the three main tenets of our society, and without these things we wouldn't be a functional group.
Okay, great, good. So basically that, and the truth is either perspective kind of leads you to the conclusion that these three things are necessary for life, whether or not whether their purpose kind of allows the world to exist, or because these three things kind of give us law and order to a certain extent, give us kind of a structured civilization. These three things are necessary whenever you're in a community or wherever you find yourself in the world. You always need to have these three aspects part of your life. So maybe someone could read. There are three sources, guys. So and there are three people. So in theory, everyone could read a source. So anyone want to read the second source?
I'll do that one.
Great.
I'll just go for the English. On the Torah, had Israel not received Torah, the heavens and earth would not have been created, as it is written, were it not for my covenant day and night, also the laws of the heavens and the earth I would not have set.
Okay, great, thanks. So here we have, the Bar Nur is focusing on one of the commentaries on the Mishnah. He's focusing on Torah, and he says specifically that, if the Torah was never received by the Jewish people, then I guess retroactively the heavens and the earth would not have been created. So much so that if here we are in 2016, that if the Jewish people had never received the Torah, then in theory maybe God would have even destroyed the world, unless there was kind of an impending date that we knew that God was going to give it to us. So the Torah is really important, and it kind of, it's the reason why the world is here. So I guess let's take a step back for a second. Why is Torah so important? Like, what about the Torah is so quintessential to Jewish life?
It sets a foundation for how to live, I wouldn't say normal, but I guess, normal life of a functioning lifestyle.
Okay, in other words, we don't know how to live life as Jews unless we have the Torah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Because Judaism is based on the Torah. You have to have the source in order to know what you're doing.
Okay, good, great. Any other possibilities?
Well, it's like
Anyone?
it's just
Yeah,
like it's a binding sort of like idea. Like, not really. It's a place to start from. It's like a foundation. Without the foundation, you don't have the culture or the language or the practices or the people. It's really like the Rosh Pina, like the little cornerstone for our society.
Okay, but why? Like, why is it such a cornerstone?
Well, I'd have to say that that's the genesis of our people.
Okay, so it's our history. So without our history, you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you were.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So kind of on the one hand, what Daniel said, like a practical approach, Seth is saying we're like, yeah, we just need to know our past if we want to create a future. Maybe one other idea is that the Torah, it's kind of known to be the almost like the DNA of God, in that many sources talk about how if you learn the Torah, you'll get closer to God, and the reason why you'll get closer to God is because it's representative of so many attributes that God has, in a sense. So one other possibility is that the reason why we learn Torah is to get closer to God, and if getting closer to God is the whole purpose of existence, then learning Torah will help you reach the purpose of existence. So that's a third possibility. Okay, and yeah, let's keep going. So Daniel, you want to maybe take a crack at the third source?
Yeah, no problem. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, when Moses went to heaven, he found God sitting and affixing crowns to the letters of the Torah. Moses said, Master of the universe, who detains your hand? I.e., why do you take so long to add these crowns to the letters? God said to him, a man will come to be at the end of many generations, and Akiva ben Yosef is his name. He will interpret on each and every tittle, piles and piles of laws. He said to him, Master of the universe, show him to me. God said to him, turn around. He went and sat at the end of the 8th row, but he did not know that what they were saying, didn't understand the teaching. He was ill at ease. When he arrived to one point, his student said to him, Teacher, how do you know it is so? He replied, it is halacha given to Moses at Mount Sinai. And he was comforted. Moses then said to God, Master of the universe, you have a man of this caliber, and you give the Torah through me? God told him to be silent.
Okay, great. Thank you. So a really, really bizarre Gemara. Some of us may be familiar with it. Some of us may not be. To summarize, so Moshe, when he was receiving the Torah from God, whatever. When Moshe was in heaven, whatever that means exactly, and he saw God writing like the extra fancy crowns on all the letters, and he said, God, why are you doing this? So God showed him Rabbi Akiva teaching his class many years from that moment, and Moshe had no idea what was happening in the class, so he started getting really upset. How can this be that I give the Torah and this guy's supposed to be teaching a Torah class and I have no idea what's happening? And all of a sudden, one of the students, raises his hand and says, "How do we know all this?" And Rabbi Akiva says, "Oh, it's halacha Moshe Sinai." So we kind of received this law, and it's a tradition from Mount Sinai, from Moshe. And so Moshe heard this and is like, "Oh, phew, nothing to worry about. this is great. They clearly are keeping within the tradition. And then whatever. So then Moshe, tells God, you should have given him the Torah, and God says, stop talking. So there are a lot of questions on this Gemara. Maybe instead of me asking the questions, do you guys have any questions you'd like to ask on this Gemara?
Yeah, how does that fit into the whole storyline of our people? Just
Okay.
how does that work? How does Moshe go to heaven, and how do they know, and why does this make sense, and all these things?
Okay, so when you say why does this make sense? What part exactly?
Just the chronology of all these things. It seems
okay.
It seems like a sort of time travel type deal. Moshe's going to see God and shows him the future.
Okay, good. Okay, so first, really broad question: where does Moshe? Since when do we have the ability to time travel? Okay, good. What else?
Why does God so abruptly tell Moshe to stop talking at the end of it?
Good, right? Yeah, it's like the modern. It's he's telling Moshe to shut up, just stop talking. But yeah, it's a really good question. This guy Rabbi Akiva was such a huge Torah scholar, and Moshe said, maybe you should have given it to him. So God just tells him to stop talking. Okay, good. Any other questions, Daniel? If you're still there, questions. So maybe one of the obvious questions, and it could be that no one's asking it because it is so obvious, but when the student asked Rabbi Akiva how he knew this, and Rabbi Akiva said it was Halacha Moshe Misinai, that Moshe had received this and taught it down, and it has been passed down through the traditions. A few seconds ago, Moshe had no idea what was going on, and now Moshe felt 100% better because he knew that Rabbi Akiva was teaching it with the traditions that were received from Mount Sinai. But it doesn't make any sense, because if Moshe was teaching them on Mount Sinai, then he should have known this. If Rabbi Akiva received these traditions from Mount Sinai, then he should have known that. Then Moshe should have known what was being taught, right? Does that question make sense? So
yes, 100%.
Okay. Okay, great, right. So okay, now let's try to understand it a little bit. Can anyone offer any kind of explanation? Either answer any of the questions that have been said, that have been asked, or ask more, or it's probably one of the most complicated Gemaras that we have. It's just the whole story doesn't make any sense.
Could you re-say the question?
Yeah, sure. Okay, the first question was Seth's, which is what's the deal with this whole time travel thing? Since when do we have the ability to time travel? Did Moshe actually go forward in time? What was going on here in terms of that? Jonathan asked, why was God so abrupt in telling God, and why was God so abrupt in telling Moshe to not ask the question at the end of why didn't Rabbi Akiva receive the Torah instead of Moshe? And the last question that I asked was, when Moshe is sitting in the room, he doesn't understand what's going on. But Rabbi Akiva said that everything he learned, that he's teaching, was taught from Moshe and passed down through all the traditions. So if that's true, then how come Moshe didn't know what was going on if it had been passed down from Moshe himself?
Maybe for the third question, maybe it was the manner of learning, because from what I recall, Moshe would sit in his tent and all the people of Israel would come to him. They would come to him and ask him questions, and he would be the judge of it, I guess, because he was the only one with the knowledge of the entire Torah, both oral and written.
Okay.
But here it was, from my understanding, it's Rabbi Akiva with his students, and they're all learning in a yeshiva, as a group.
Yeah.
So I think that's why he didn't really understood just the manner of learning. He probably understood what they were actually learning about, but what didn't make sense was their approach to what they were learning, or to what he was taught.
Okay. Wait, interesting. Can you say it a little clearer? I'm not sure I fully understand.
Okay, basically, Moses would sit at a tent when he got the Torah. He was the only beneficiary of the entire Torah all at
Okay.
once. He had all the knowledge from what I've been taught. He would sit at his tent, and before there was a whole system of judges, everyone would come up to him and ask him questions. And then even when the judges came to be, they would go up and ask the judges.
Okay.
Whereas here, everyone is in, I guess, a room. Everyone's in a single place. There's, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of people learning the same thing, but or different things. It doesn't really matter. They're all learning, and I think that must have been peculiar to him because it's not just one person answering questions. It's everyone trying to answer the questions
Okay.
amongst
Okay.
each other.
Wow. That's a really good. That's a really interesting answer. So just so I could summarize, basically, when back in Moshe's day, Moshe would kind of teach the Torah to everyone, but he would be the only one teaching it. Now it seems like what Rabbi Akiva is doing is that he's sitting in a class of students, and even though Rabbi Akiva is kind of the only teacher, everyone is kind of learning Torah on its own and trying to understand it in their own right, instead of everyone learning from one individual like in Moshe's time.
Exactly.
Okay. Interesting. So Moshe was more perturbed by the style of learning, and that's what made him not understand what was going on, and not the actual content.
Yes.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. Cool. I like that answer. What else? Does anyone else have anything to say?
Yeah, I think maybe another explanation is that this is maybe before Moshe received the Torah on Har Sinai. Because it says that Hashem is still affixing affixing the crowns to the letters. Maybe
Okay.
before, so he doesn't know what's going on, he doesn't know what's going to happen, but he's questioning like the reason for having these crowns on top of the letters.
Okay. So in other words, since the whole Torah wasn't given, so of course Moshe doesn't know what's happening yet.
Right.
Okay, so if I could push back on that, the only thing I would say why I don't agree with that is because usually when you're affixing, when you're affixing the crowns and the letters, it probably means that the whole Torah was written out, just the crowns weren't on it yet. Like meaning the periods and the commas weren't there, but the words are all there.
Is that not a logical reasoning? I mean, like, is it possible that that's also like a possibility, or is that
Okay, so an answer that I would give along the lines of what you're saying, but not exactly it, is I would say that it's a whole debate. When did Moshe receive the whole Torah, and what exactly did he receive when he was on Har Sinai? And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that no one actually believes that he received the entire Torah at Har Sinai. Rather, he received all of it throughout the 40 years that he was in the desert until the end of the 40 years. So it's kind of along the lines of what you're saying. Yeah, God was, I guess, affixing the letters on the part of the Torah that he did receive on Har Sinai, but many of the aspects of the Torah have not been taught to Moshe yet. In fact, he still has to wait a little, 38 more years to receive that. Does that sit well with you?
Yeah. Works.
Okay. Anything, Jonathan? Any ideas?
So I know.
Yeah.
From my understanding, like one part of Masorah is not just you learn stuff from your rabbi and he learns stuff from his rabbi, and there's this long extended chain. And from my understanding of that is that it's not just the information that they teach you, but the way sort of you learn things out. So potentially it's sort of consistent with the idea of the way that this was learned out was passed down, or that methodology was passed down all the way from Moshe.
Okay, great. Yeah, so there's actually, I think what you're alluding to, there's a famous machloket, there's a famous argument between the Gaonim and the Gra, the Vilna Gaon, in terms of how we receive the Torah. Did we receive every single aspect, every single last note that we have of the Torah nowadays? Was every single art scroll book and literally everything, was that all given at Har Sinai? Or was it just that we received the basics and also the tools to kind of get to the bottom of what the Torah thinks, but not actually a conclusive answer from the actual text itself. So I think this Gemara is really indicative of exactly what you're saying, Jonathan. That the content was all given to Moshe. But in terms of learning every single aspect of it and learning every single angle of it, so Rabbi Akiva had his own way of learning it, and in a way that Moshe had never heard. But once Moshe heard that Rabbi Akiva was loyal to the traditions that Masorah had taught, then Moshe was okay with it. Okay, great. I like that also. I guess the real takeaway from this Gemara, and you can, push back if you don't think so, it's that at the end of the day, what Rabbi Akiva was kind of taking ownership of the Torah and kind of learning it in his own way and teaching it in his own way. So maybe the takeaway from this Gemara is that we're meant to learn Torah, take ownership of our own Torah, and as long as we're loyal to the traditions that we have and to the other texts that we have, then it's all kind of all good. Just learn Torah, be passionate about it, and understand it in your own way, without necessarily contradicting previous teachings, or at the very least respectfully, arguing on previous teachings. Does anyone else have anything to say on any of the sources that we saw? Okay. So yeah, just a quick overview. So we kind of looked at the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot that talks about that there are three things the world stands on: Torah, Avodah, Gemilut Chasadim. Then we focused on Torah. We said how Torah is kind of the thing that allows for the heavens and the earth to be here. And then we saw the Gemara in Menachot that talks about using Torah as a way of connecting to God, but also taking ownership of the Torah. And as long as you're staying loyal to the past, then you can move forward with your own understandings of the Torah. Okay, so maybe let's segue now into the more practical part of the webinar, and that is, kind of making sure that Torah is an active part of our lives on campus. I don't need to tell all of you how busy every single one of you is with all of your classes, with all of your papers, all of your tests, and who knows what else. So I want to pose the question to you of a different angle of a question that we asked earlier, and is, why is Torah so important to us? And that, is Torah intrinsically valuable that I should be taking every last moment of my day to learn it? Or is Torah just kind of there so that, like kind of what Daniel said before, just so that I know what to do, and outside of that, I don't need to learn anymore? What are your guys' thoughts on that? Is it intrinsically valuable so that I should learn it all the time, or just valuable so that I need to know what I'm doing?
I think there's got to be some sort of balance between the two. I mean, obviously, as religious Jews, we have to value Torah for what it is and for what it brings to our lives. At the same time, like, it's Torah isn't I don't think it's an end, but it's a means to an end. So you learn the things from the Torah in order to do things in other aspects of your life. So if you're studying all day doing Torah, you're not really applying the things you do in the Torah to your life necessarily.
Okay, great, good. Jonathan, Daniel, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think in my own opinion, I don't think that Torah is just a means to an end. I do think that Torah is an end of it, like in and of itself, and just like the side effect, if you want to call it that, is sort of just spill off from learning Torah and like the practical values and the way to live your life outside of that. That's sort of just like a side result that you get from it, but it does have its own intrinsic value. Probably in the sense that it sort of helps you foster this connection with God, or a greater understanding of the world around you without, and then you can take that and then go further, but that itself is important.
Okay, great. And Daniel, anything to add?
I mean, I agree with both, Jonathan. I mean, Torah is just from what I previously said, Torah is a great foundation, and there are a lot of practical things that you can take away from it and how to live your daily life as a member of society, in addition to a member of the Jewish people. And I think it creates a sort of a cohesive balance between the two. I think that's the value of it, alongside with the value of it as a religious, text and stuff.
Okay, so So kind of to jump off of what all three of you are saying, there's actually a really famous sugya that's discussed that there's a line in the Gemara that says osik b'mitzvah pater osik b'mitzvah pater min mitzvah. If you're dealing with one commandment, then you don't have to do another mitzvah. So anyone familiar with this?
Heard it around.
Okay, great. So just to give a quick overview, right? So the idea is pretty simple. So if I'm, let's say, in theory, let's say I'm helping an old lady cross the street, which is arguably a mitzvah. Then I haven't davened yet, but the time for davening comes up. So in theory, it could be that I'm allowed to help the old lady cross the street and not need to daven at that moment. So how intense this teaching is. But there's actually an argument between some of the commentators about how far we take this. So, for example, if a person is wearing tzitzit or a person is learning Torah, okay, then does every mitzvah fall under the category of osik mitzvah pater min mitzvah? So when it comes to more passive mitzvot like tzitzit and like brit milah or something like that, these things that we hopefully are always doing, or but passively, like it doesn't take any energy for me to wear my tzitzit. So those mitzvot, I believe everyone agrees that those will not exempt you from actively doing another one, because if you're always wearing tzitzis, then you never have to do any mitzvah, and that doesn't make any sense. But the big question comes to learning Torah. So if Torah is such an important mitzvah in its own right, intrinsically valuable, as Jonathan said, and the practicality is important, but you shouldn't knock the intrinsic value. Then every time I'm learning Torah, I should not have to do another mitzvah. So, for example, if I'm learning Torah in the Beit Midrash and the time for mincha comes and it's almost time for where I won't be able to daven mincha anymore, then am I allowed to keep learning, or do I have to stop and daven? So the truth is, it's not so simple. So some people say that Torah is intrinsically valuable, and therefore, since it's its own mitzvah, you may not have to stop learning Torah to go daven. Whereas others will say, I think maybe more along the lines with what Seth said, that Torah is at the end of the day a book to teach us practical laws and kind of how to live life. And so when the opportunity comes up to live life and to perform some of the commandments, then of course you should stop learning Torah to do the other commandments. So it's really interesting how kind of your argument is kind of also reflected in earlier commentators. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, everyone has a little bit of truth in what they're saying, right? Clearly, you can't do anything in Judaism if you don't know how to do it, and one way to know how to do it is to learn the Torah. But also at the same time, there's clearly some level of intrinsic value to learning Torah that even if you know everything, which I assume most of us don't know everything, then but even if you did, there would still be a value in learning Torah just for the sake of learning it. Okay, so maybe let's get a little bit more practical now. I wanted to ask you, what kind of Torah opportunities exist on your campuses? So that could be anything like an open Beit Midrash to a weekly lunch and learns, pizza and parsha. What kind of things like that exist on all of your campuses? So maybe Seth, we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of actually opportunities. There's a lot of them, but they're all kind of tied down to food. So we have lunch and learn on Wednesdays, and then Wednesday night we have Aish sponsors like dinner and discussion, and then Hillel also has they usually talk about mostly secular like cultural stuff, but sometimes they tie in a few like parsha points or topics of discussion from the Talmud, whatever. And that for Hillel that usually happens on Sundays. And then beyond that, just on Fridays and Saturdays, like a couple people usually stay in the Chabad house and learn. That's pretty much it.
Cool. Just learn, do their own learning?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Cool. Jonathan, how about in Dartmouth?
So for us, it's basically just every Shabbos at the Chabad rabbi's house. They'll have an hour of learning. I haven't set this up personally. I know there's a professor here who has had chavruses with students in the past. I haven't emailed him yet just because I've been adjusting, but I think during winter term I'll definitely get to know that more. But like I know he has that. I know that he has set up independent study courses on things like studying Tanya and like other things, so you could actually take it as a course credit.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's what we have.
Cool. And Daniel, how about an ASU?
So we have one of the, I guess, Arizona specific Jewish organizations called Jack. They have a Taco Tuesdays basically at lunch, and I haven't been able to go to since it conflicts with my schedule, my class schedule. But they discussed, and, I mean, they do learning for about an hour or two, I think, on Tuesdays. The I know Chabad, they have some learning opportunities on Shabbat, and they give some classes throughout the week. If you want, there's also opportunities to do Chavruta with the rabbi, but you have to take that upon yourself. There's no like official schedule or classes that you should go to. And that's about it. It's a lot of self-paced. It's if you want to learn, there are people to help you learn. Opportunities available. So
Okay. So maybe just to go from that last point to the next question. Do you guys feel like there isn't enough Torah on your campus? And before you all answer yes, do you feel like there are some opportunities for Torah that you wish you had that you don't have? And if so, what are they?
Should I start here?
Yeah,
yeah, I definitely think there's a lack of like sort of the institutions or like the projects for Torah learning. The only thing is though, like especially for people in sciences and first year, it's like very hard to budget time just in general. So even just to find time to do your own schoolwork and then on top of that to learn Torah, that's a little bit more maybe down the road I'll see if I can do that. But yeah, I think if there's more sort of like drive and push for doing like 10 minutes learning every day, or like for people who are not so religious, just to do 10 minutes learning every week, that could be like another push for sure.
Okay. And what does that mean exactly? Like 10 minutes shiurim or like the recordings, or like how do you mean that exactly?
I don't know. I mean, the majority of Jews on campus are not traditional or religious.
Okay.
And those who are traditional don't usually do too much Torah study.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe if there was like a once a week like shiur, and whether it's like through a video link or through like an actual person, that could be like a community unifying idea, and I think that would work at some point.
Interesting. And any topics in particular?
I feel like most people would probably like practical halacha or just Jewish thought.
Okay.
And not so intense, like more basic stuff.
Okay. Cool. Interesting. We've thought about it in the past actually through Kahal. Maybe sending out like weekly shiurim or something like that. I don't know, but okay, interesting. Jonathan, how about you?
So yeah, there's definitely a lack, but I think that just comes from the overall lack of like an Orthodox community. And as it is right now, there isn't really a viable way to gain interest from people to get involved with more Torah. I think like the biggest thing is that there's not people doing it. Like there's just, like it's basically just like me, the rabbi, and like maybe 2 other people who are sometimes interested, but most of the time not. And that's where the issue comes in terms of doing things better. The community needs to grow first before anything learning wise really gets implemented.
Okay,
it's
but
a matter of creating the environment for it.
what about you personally though?
Me personally, in terms of learning, so I know that I just need to budget my time better and actually get more learning, and I definitely need to speak to that one professor who would have a chavrusa with me. He actually used to teach at one of the yeshivas in Israel. Which is really interesting. Yeah.
Where do you teach? Really? And so, oh wait, which professor?
Glinert.
Okay, I think I know the name. I think I do.
Really fascinating person.
Sounds like it. Okay, and Daniel, what about you?
I mean,
I feel like there's more opportunities.
No, there are definitely a lot. We have I don't know if you remember from our last webinar, but we have like 3 Jewish organizations, and we have some Jews on campus. So we definitely have we definitely have the numbers, and there are many like classes that they're given throughout those 3 organizations. There's plenty of, I'd say, there's plenty of learning opportunities. It's all about if you want to go, because no one's you're just it's really up to you. No one's going to come out and just recruit you. We do push out like patients to whatever to all these events, but it's like I said, up to you.
What about you personally though? Do you feel like you have enough Torah in your life?
Right now, yeah. There are these incentivized learning programs where they give you a stipend at the completion of the learning program, and I'm in them right now. So it takes up quite a bit of my time, since I'm doing 2 of these learning programs, and they're both 2 hours each a week.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that's 4 hours.
What are the learning programs?
There's the Sinai Scholars through Chabad.
Okay, sure.
And then there's a Maimonides Scholars Program
through Jack.
Through Jack. Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm doing that right now. So I'm pretty set, I'd have to say, for now.
That's awesome.
Among the other things I'm doing, yeah. So those things exist, and there are a lot of people that I know that do them. So.
Okay, cool.
I think that there's a solid amount, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Wow, that's really great. Okay, so I think we're getting close to the end here. I just wanted to and I'm going to send a follow-up email out afterwards, but I just wanted to make everyone kind of aware. So on Kahal's website, we do have like a whole list of various online resources, online Batei Midrash, online Shiurim, these kinds of things. So I'll definitely send the link out to all of you. Two other things that I think are important to mention. One is that we do have our older Kahal fellows would definitely love to learn with younger ones. So if any of you have any interest in having a chavruta with another Kahal fellow, then please let me know. And then I had to mention to you, and some of you said you were interested, but I'll just say it again. I'm open to learning with any of you for a chavruta, at least one chavruta a week, or maybe more in theory, if you'd be interested in that, on anything in Judaism. So I just wanted to let you all know about that. And so let me just quickly summarize what we spoke about. So we had the 3 sources at the beginning, right? The value of Torah and kind of making Torah your own. And then we kind of spoke a little bit more about the practical aspects of Torah. Is Torah only a book for practicality? Is there also an intrinsic value in it? And then everyone kind of went around and shared what Torah opportunities or maybe lack thereof exist on some of your campuses. And I think that on, I guess Daniel's campus has enough Torah, but for other campuses that may need a little more. There's definitely Torah opportunities out there, and even though it probably is difficult if you feel like you're the only one doing it, there's definitely, much like we have Kahal, like this online network, there's definitely a lot of online resources. So we'll definitely follow up about that. So we'll definitely be in touch about that soon. And I think for now that's it. Anyone else have any questions, things they want to bring up?
When's our next webinar?
Okay, great question. The way we usually plan the third webinar, it's everyone has different schedules, but we try to do it after finals. So usually like mid-December is when we do it. But still working out the exact date, but something around mid-December.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Okay.
you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.